So next we have two people from Mozilla joining us. They are both working on the Firefox add-on teams. So I'd like to introduce you to Rob Wu, who is an engineer on this team, and Philipp Kewisch, who is an ops manager. Rob has extensive experience contributing to browser platforms, especially when it comes to extension-related APIs. And Philipp's main areas of focus have been add-on security, API product management, and operations management. And we're really grateful to have you both with us today. And I will pop back in again in about 25 minutes to help you with questions. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to see you all and talk to you a little bit about the future of content blockers in Firefox. So let's get started. We can kind of skip introductions since those were made, but I did want to say my origin has been on product management in the past for the Web Extensions API, and I'm really grateful that Rob is here with us since his experience, not only in Firefox, across many browsers, has been hugely valuable to us. So the first area of topics is around Manifest v3 and extension APIs. You may have read our blog post from last year, where we gave an update on Manifest v3 and our plans regarding it. So we wanted to dive into a little bit more detail on how we've been doing there. So this is an overview of our Manifest v3 progress. It's been quite a few changes that were necessary to support Manifest v3, especially service workers have been very elaborate. Start with the easy one. Promises. The Web Extensions API in Firefox has been promise-based since its inception. There's a backwards compatible for the callback-based approach, and we're very glad to hear that Chrome will be offering this for Manifest v3 as well. Many of the remaining changes required a lot of changes on the Firefox platform to get it working. Background service workers. We are at the point where a service worker will start, but the APIs need to be exposed in the right way. So there's still a lot of work to do in that area. For runtime host permissions, we absolutely enjoy this concept. We like that it gives users more control over how extensions are run in Firefox. Presenting this to the user in a way that's easy to control and doesn't overload them with decisions is very difficult, though. We have a UI proposal ready, but we haven't started implementing that on the front end or back end side yet. For cross-origin communications, this has been a larger effort within Firefox that's not only limited to extensions. We call it Project Fission. Others know this as site isolation. It's separating origins into different processes, even if those origins are loaded on the same page. But we expect that if your add-on works in Chrome, it will also work in Firefox, specifically regarding these cross-origin changes. For remotely hosted code, our policies have always been to disallow remotely hosted code. Adding technical means to enforce this is great, and we have an implementation for restricting this using content security policies in content scripts. And that is a change that we very much welcome. There's more opportunity to make technical restrictions on remotely hosted code, though unfortunately some cases can only be restricted by a policy. For declarative net request, you see this is very low to 0 here. We haven't started implementing this yet, as we'd like to see how it evolves and how it stabilizes first to see what our next steps would be in that area. Let's dive into that actually a little bit. We've considered a number of options, as you can see here on the slide. We attempted to cover the full spectrum of options and find a balance between providing functionality for developers, the operational cost, for example, manual add-on review, but also implementation and maintenance effort. One common aspect, we do strive to remain largely compatible with Chrome's implementation and will therefore be implementing declarative net request. but we may depart in some areas where we believe it's feasible. Looking at the first option, this is, I guess, the simplest. We just take DNR, implement it, maybe extend it with a few more rules, actions, and possibly less limits. This is possible, and it's preferable to kind of work together and see, are there maybe use cases that aren't covered? Is this something that we could implement in Firefox, but also encourage the Chrome team to make some changes based on our recommendations. We could, of course, provide an alternative API that would cover additional use cases that DNR doesn't solve, though we are worried this would end up being yet another blocking web request. So we're unsure if an alternative is the best approach here. We could add some more operational restrictions on this. For example, we could say that extensions that make use of blocking web request would land in a pre-review state. There's a high chance we'd get many more requests to pre-review these add-ons, and that would be quite resource intensive. So the option that's left here, and that's what we're currently looking at, is to keep web request blocking for the time being. We would implement DNR, keep web request blocking around in manifest v3. From what we've seen so far, the main aspect is performance. Add-ons misusing it for malicious purposes. And we believe that add-ons using blocking web requests correctly often increase performance, for example, by reducing page load times. For malicious add-ons, we feel that for Firefox, it has been at a manageable level. And also, since the add-ons are mostly interested in grabbing that data, they can still do that with the current web request API that's not blocking. So we will continue to support blocking web request for now. We will, of course, continue to monitor developments and usage among add-on developers. And now I'd like to turn over to Rob, who's going to go a little bit more into detail.
Yes. So as Philipp said, we are looking into implementing a declarative net request API. The need for it is quite obvious. So there are three main motivators. The first two are privacy and performance. Privacy is not really a significant motivation for this change. It's still relevant, as some of you may have known about the recent news that an Adblocker was caught selling the add-on to a different entity, and the users were compromised. But that is, again, not the significant motivation for this change, because add-ons can also improve privacy in a positive way, and we are looking into different ways to allow users to have a better privacy. Second thing is performance. In theory, the browser could perform better by implementing the blocking itself, but add-ons that have the right tools available, they can implement the functionality in a more efficient way. Last year at the Dev Summit, there was a presentation by Remy from Glix about a potential way to improve it by using better data structures. That is something that's only possible if there is room for innovation, and that is not really possible if we only have a declarative net request API. But the last one, architectural needs, those are undeniably related to the declarative API. Suspendable background scripts or service workers, those require the declarative API, because if there's a blocking API and the background script is suspended, then it will take possibly hundreds of milliseconds before a request is unblocked. That is not acceptable. Even worse is if there's a startup of the browser, or if the process has crashed and needs to be resumed, which is especially relevant on mobile, then the startup performance cost is prohibitive. So that's why there's a need to have a declarative API that allows the browser to already make decisions before the add-on is involved. This can fit together with a blocking API. For example, in the case of the startup, if the extension isn't there yet, the browser can decide based on those declarative rules to already block or continue some requests. And if the extension is around, the extension can be consulted to do some blocking request and evaluate whether some complicated condition is met. We have no desire to cripple add-ons, especially not those that are innovative and those implementations aren't covered by declarative net request. We are very open to feedback and welcome developers and users to reach out to us, provide comments and contributions if available. In the long term, we would like to encourage the use of declarative APIs and discourage blocking APIs where possible. This could be by providing relevant information to users to make informed decisions on whether they are trading performance for functionality or privacy. And again, feedback and contributions are welcome. Next slide, please. Next point is of Manifest v3 is permissions, controlling host permissions. We ask developers to use permissions responsibly. So extensions are acting on behalf of users, and extension scripts continue to be trusted as is today. Content scripts will become more secure by default, which means that we will drop permissions and privileges that they currently have to have the same level as the page. That matches the behavior of Chrome, and extensions that work in Chrome will continue to work in Firefox. Another aspect is that we will add the ability to change the content security policy for a content script and also define a default policy that is secure by default. And the need for those changes is also because we have site isolation. In the long term, there's some hardening that allows the browser to control which requests and cross-origin data can be accessed by a frame. And that also requires an architectural change in order to be really secure, which is not a surprise for Chrome people, probably. That is just a part of content scripts. By removing privileges from content scripts, it becomes more natural that extensions want to move a request handling to the background page, because that is the only place for usual extension to perform cross-origin requests. When doing that, you need to take care to not accidentally break the isolation between different contexts or leak data between different origins. That may not be very obvious. Let's start with something that you may all know probably. Same-site cookies is a recent addition that allows third-party sites to not see cookies from another site as by default. That defends against a class of security vulnerabilities by accidental leakage of cookies. Firefox has more features that are also based on cookie isolation, such as first-party isolation and tracking protection, that could accidentally be violated if an extension page blindly forwards a request from a content script to a different origin. Another isolation part is private browsing, also known as incognito in Chrome, and container tabs. Container tabs are a feature of Firefox where each tab runs or can potentially be part of a set of sites, and those sites are running in different contexts where the storage is isolated. That also allows things like logging into an email provided with different accounts in the same browser session. To make sure that extensions that, for example, check for unread mails are part of the correct session, extensions need to take care to watch on which container that they are acting and send requests to the right context. That is on the part what extensions can do. We will also allow users to get more control over what extensions can do. There's ongoing UX research, user experience for runtime host permissions, as Philipp said before. I included a mock-up in the presentation. This is a mock-up, it could change, but we could also implement it. Another thing that we are exploring is container level isolation of add-ons, where add-ons can be changed to only run in a specific container or to run in all containers except for some. This is part of an outreach project that we are mentoring, and if we find the intern, we will do that in December, starting from December. Next slide, please. So last month, we released a new version of Firefox for Android, codenamed Phoenix. Next slide. Phoenix is a built from the ground, a new version of Firefox for Android. The predecessor was called Fennec. Fennec has been stagnating for a while, and Phoenix is the replacement. Because we rewrote most of it from scratch, add-ons implementation wasn't available at the start yet, and we added whatever we could add to get some of it running. The rollout of add-ons on Phoenix is a gradual strategy. We first focus on the selection of add-ons from a curated set of add-ons from the recommended extension program. We picked add-ons that work well for mobile and cover more than just one category. For example, we did not only choose privacy add-ons, even though we have them. And we started with uBlock Origin. We provided support to uBlock Origin in form of UX help and designs and conversations. Raymond Hill, the author of uBlock Origin, actually posted those communications in public. And we are currently at 11 add-ons for this week's release, and we are having 7 more for the next release due in November 17th. There's lots of work left before we can release add-ons for everyone. We have to scope out a lot of work left to do, such as installation flow and add-on management via the add-on manager in Phoenix and the addons.mozilla.org site on our site. We also have to fix API defects, such as missing APIs as browsing data and downloads, or broken implementations such as containers and active depth. Another big part is that we also need to implement a dedicated extension process. Extensions currently all run in the main process, which is not really secure or stable. And moving it to a separate process turned out to be difficult because extension process can be crashed on Android. And as I mentioned before in the webRequest section, if the extension process goes away, the extension functionality breaks, and we need to recover from that. Another big part of work is that we need to support a scalable add-ons block list. Last month, we published about the improved version of the block list in Firefox Desktop. That was very scalable and support millions of blocks at little cost based on Bloom filters. And we need to do something similar for mobile. We need to prepare for the operational side to ensure a good user experience. For example, acting on abuse reports, policy improvements, and add-on reviews, and ensure that we have enough to assess the impact of add-ons on the user's perception on the mobile product. So all in all, lots of work. We'd like to commit soon to make, we like to soon make a commitment on the feasibility of general availability. And these factors may help us in making that decision. Developers can already test add-ons via the webExt command, a tool that we provide to add-on developers to run extensions in Firefox, Chrome, and Edge. And users can install add-ons, any add-on on Phoenix nightly already, without any restrictions. So keep an eye on the add-ons blog. We'll post any updates on availability there. Next slide.
Thank you, Rob. So for the last part, I wanted to make a quick plug on our new promoted add-ons program, since I feel there's also some opportunities for ad blockers in there. So let's look into what that looks like. For somewhat promoted add-ons, so we have 3 programs currently that have a special marker on the add-on listing. The recommended extensions program you may have seen, since we have had this for quite a while longer. It's a curated set of add-ons. We require that they're actively developed, they're safe to use, they have an exceptional user experience, and relevant for a general and international audience. Since it is a purely editorial program, it covers only about 100 add-ons, and it's growing fairly slowly. Developers can make suggestions for new add-ons, but there's not a way to just kind of join the program and get started. We also recently introduced a by Firefox badge to mark all add-ons that were made by Mozilla or Firefox. Some add-ons might not be relevant for the same audience that the recommended extensions program covers, or it's an early prototype. But we wanted to mark these add-ons so that users know this is something that has passed our security standards and is by Firefox. Finally, the new thing is the verified add-ons programs. This is part of a new pilot program we're running currently for promoted add-ons. Since the recommended extensions program has a limited number of slots, developers have often reached out to us asking, how do they be part of this program? How do they have their add-ons promoted with a little bit more security and safety? Others ask us to review and monitor their add-ons before submission to increase trust for their users. Manually reviewing add-ons at this scale has a prohibitive cost associated with it. We therefore introduced this pilot programs that will allow developers to pay a fee for the benefit of being reviewed. There's different perks with it in this program. There is the verified badge that you see here. It denotes mainly that the add-on is security reviewed, but it doesn't have additional requirements as an exceptional user experience or general use. Essentially, it just needs to be compliant to our policies. Then there's also the sponsored placement perk that you can get. This is more prominent placement, for example, on the start page for add-ons Mozilla.org. And this has already shown a major impact for some of the add-ons in the program. Looking more closely at the program, there's 12 add-ons currently in this program. We actually have one content blocker in the program called Adblock for Firefox. And since ad blocking is a very popular term that performs well in terms of impressions, this has already resulted in increased installs. The pilot program will run until end of November, at which point we all know if the program graduates, and we're looking to make determinations on how that will look. So if you're interested in joining this program, please check out the blog post that I just linked in the questions and answers channel. There's also a link there to sign up for the waitlist in case you'd be interested in signing up sometime past December. So this is all for now. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you both so much. There are a ton of questions coming in and 5 minutes left, so we will take them to the Slack channel afterwards. But let's see where we can go. The top voted one is from Hubert, and you might have answered it in the last minute or two, so feel free to point us to the same place. But he asked, how can we, Adblock Plus, get onto the add-on rollout?
Yes, exactly. So is this for the promoted add-ons program or for Phoenix specifically? I guess that's the difference. I guess I can just answer both quickly. So the pilot program, I added the link to the questions and answers channel on Slack. There's a link where you can sign up there. For Phoenix, essentially, you would need to be part of the recommended extensions program, since the selection is currently happening from there. We're looking to see we're looking at the criteria for general availability of add-ons, and that is something that we will definitely announce on the add-ons blog as well, but we can't make that determination quite yet.
Okay, thank you. Then the next one's from Peter Lowe. Is there any rough timeline on decisions for declarative net request?
I guess that depends on decisions. So I think we have decided that we will implement it for compatibility's sake. We haven't started the implementation since the other aspects of Manifest v3 have been so time-consuming. And I guess we'll also kind of see how things evolve until that point where we can start. But I'm guessing also looking at the timeline that the Chrome team is looking at, that will be sometime within 2021.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for sharing all those links as you've been talking. I don't know how you're multitasking. There's still a few more questions. So Shwetank asked, for runtime host permissions, have you already identified any areas where your approach would or could differ from Chrome's approach?
Yes, maybe Rob, you want to answer that since the containers question point came up?
Yes, so on the container specific part, containers is a unique feature of Firefox, and we think that allowing users to limit add-ons to where it can run based on their workflow, which containers is proxy for, that could be something unique and more user-friendly than slightly specific origins.
Great, thank you. Let's see what we still have. Okay, we've got 3 more minutes. We can fit one more. David Oakley asked, are you contemplating a feature like Brave's basic attention tokens to allow users to opt into benefiting from ads?
I would need to talk to my team about that. I am not aware of that in detail, but I'm happy to check with our current product manager on what that would look like.
Cool. Thanks. Real-time feedback. And then let's see, one more question, and then we'll take the rest probably to the channel. This is from Kai. Is there any plan to implement content blocking natively in Firefox, similar, oh, it just disappeared, or as something?
Yeah, that would be a declarative net request API. We wouldn't implement it as a native feature, I think. Add-ons can already use those APIs to provide the functionality that users need.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you both very much. I think in the interest of time, we're going to wrap it up here. But once again, thank you. And I can see you're already active on Slack, so I'm sure people can chat to you there.
Thanks for hosting us.
Thanks so much.
Bye.